Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this video. I hope you're having a good day. In this video, I want to introduce or answer three why questions related to descriptive tables. Why are they used? Why are they typically ignored? And why are they so useful? So why are they used? Well, the reality is most students that I run across when I'm working with them on their dissertation, they use them because they think they're supposed to be used. And that's about half the story. We should use them because everybody else uses them. But why? Well, we use descriptive tables to help support a story about our data. We're simply trying to make the point that our data represents some sort of norm. The data that I'm working with isn't unusual. So that when I make my claims, they are universal. And that is the point of conducting research, is to find something that can be generalizable, that makes sense on a larger scale than this one scenario that I'm looking at. Even if I am doing a study of a single case, I eventually want to make the claim that this case isn't alone, that there is something about this case that can be connected to something else. Many students that I run into when they're conducting research, they want to believe when they first start out that they have to reinvent the wheel and they have to create something completely new. Well, no. We want you to create something new, but we don't want you to create something completely new. And there's a difference. It has to draw a connection back to something else. And so when I create a descriptive table, what I'm trying to convey to the reader, to the committee, to whoever is reading this document, that the source of the data or the measurements that were taken has a degree of uniformity within itself and to the larger population from which it is drawn. That's why we use descriptive tables. Why are they typically ignored? Well, they're typically ignored because of two reasons that I find. The first reason is the table isn't presented in a way that makes sense to the reader. If that doesn't make any sense to them, if they don't understand it, they will ignore it. The other reason why a lot of people will ignore a descriptive table is they don't think there's anything in it that's going to tell them anything of import. In other words, they're not sophisticated enough in their understanding of statistics to truly interpret a descriptive table. Well, that leads us to the last question. How are they useful? Or why are they so useful? Well, they're very useful to someone who understands a little bit more about statistics. And let me give you an example, a couple of examples. One is here, another is going to be here, and then there's going to be a final one on the internet. So here, why is this table so useful? Well, it's useful because it tells me the center, spread, and shape of my data. I know that the mean of this light passing through a color wheel is 680 nanometers. Now, if I go back and look at a table that tells me the color of light at a specific nanometer length, that tells me some information. It tells me on average the color of light. The median and the mode also give me some information. Because they're close to the mean, that tells me that this data is likely, not guaranteed, but likely to be normal distribution. If I look at the standard deviation, if I take that standard deviation and multiply it by 2, I should then be able to add it and subtract it and collect roughly 95%. If that's the case, then I do know I have a normal distribution. It's very useful. Another thing that I can do, though, is if I take the standard deviation and multiply it by 4, if it's close to the range, then I also know I probably have a normal distribution. Finally, if my skewness and kurtosis are very close to 0, and some would argue that less than 3 or greater than negative 3, then I'm also close to a standard deviation. So the first really good use for a descriptive table is to identify the data that's normally distributed. And that's going to be very important when trying to interpret results of later analyses. So, what's a second thing that's useful for a descriptive table? Well, if I look at this table, a very useful thing is it allows me to identify data that may be on different scales. And one of the big issues that I see with people is they measure data on different scales and then want to start drawing comparisons. Well, right away I should see that, hey, age, BMI, and milk lipid content, these are three different scales. And so whatever connections that I'm starting to think I see, I can't because they're on different scales. And so that's very useful. It automatically makes me start thinking, okay, these are on different scales. There needs to be more information before I draw some conclusions. And that's useful. It prevents us from taking too many leaps forward. Now, most of us don't have that problem, but some of us do. We start seeing connections where there are none. Now, if we go to the internet, there's a final use that I'd like to point out for these tables. It gives us information as to the ability of the person who's presenting the information. What do I mean by that? Okay. If I look at this table, and it doesn't matter what the data represents, what matters is the information that's in the table. I've got the mean and the standard deviation. That's center and spread. I have the median. That's also center. I have IQR and range. That's spread. So I've got spread over here and spread over here. Already this should be sending warning flags as to the ability of the presenter of this information. If I'm combining these and putting them in different areas, that should be sending up warning flags to me as a reader. One of the things that you're going to be doing as you're reading for your dissertation is you're making judgments. What's a good article? I'm having to go through all these articles to put my literature together. How do I determine what's a good article? Well, if I start seeing tables like this where people are not playing fast and loose, the data is probably accurate, but the presentation is a little bit muddied, then I need to understand that the good researchers, they take pains to put together good tables. They don't just say, it's good enough. No. They want to make sure that it's a table that makes sense, gives me useful information, and gives me proper information. One last thing I would say here. Look at the IQR and the range. They're not giving you the IQR and the range. They're giving you the values that would be used to find the IQR and the range. Now, in some fields, maybe that's good enough. But for me, if you're going to say IQR, that is the difference between the third quartile and the first quartile. That's IQR. The range is the difference between the highest value and the lowest value. Otherwise, why is it here? I hope this video has answered some of your questions. I hope it's raised some questions. If it has, love to hear them. Otherwise, I hope you have a good day.